Hey everybody, this is James Gray, and today we're going to talk a little bit about AI agents, kind of what are they and why are they important. You've probably heard it in the news. I'm going to demystify that for you. If you're a business person who's not technical, no worries. I'm going to kind of take you through some of the easy things you can do to enable a agent experience on your desktop. So let's first go and understand what exactly are agents. And I like this framework from OpenAI, kind of these different levels of maturity around capability. For those of you who are using ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, you're really using it in the kind of these level 1 and level 2 use cases where we're kind of collaborating through different mechanisms, kind of back and forth Q&A to be more kind of conversational. Again, that could be voice as well, but they're not actually taking action for us for a specific task. And that's really where agents come in. What agents are essentially these software systems that do a couple things. One, they reason through the problems that we give them. They kind of break down those problems into plans. They actually take action through a set of tools that we actually give them. And we're going to go through an example using Claude around how do we enable Claude Desktop with a set of tools. And then they execute these, and then they were going to observe kind of the new state of kind of what is the the state of the system. And so if we're giving it a goal to actually achieve, has it achieved the goal? If not, it's going to continue iterating. At some point, it may actually abort as well. So these kind of different levels are, I think, a good way of looking at where are we in kind of the maturity curve of AI. And then let's just reinforce what are some of the components of an agent. The first, as I mentioned, kind of reasoning or planning. These agents take this problem, they decompose it into a series of steps and workflow, just like what we do in our work. But again, the agent is actually going to do that for you. Tool use. This is where, again, we're going to give the agent a set of tools that we've authorized it for to execute these tasks. And it's going to be up to the agent to actually use the tool of choice that kind of it selects, kind of given the problem. Third, reflection. It's going to kind of iterate and improve to the point where kind of it's achieved the result. So just think of reflection as kind of iteration. It may actually use multiple LLMs to deliver on that outcome. And then I want you to think about agents not as this one thing, but generally kind of a network of agents that are working together to collaborate to achieve some outcome. You might have kind of a master agent that is delegating to tasks to specific agents that, again, are honed and created specifically for kind of tasks in that workflow. And then we might bring all those things together to achieve the goal. So multi-agent communication is an important capability. And then finally, just like us as humans, memory, we need to kind of track where we are in this kind of workflow of execution, as well as did we actually achieve kind of the result and kind of where are we in the process. Because this agent kind of task, it may take a couple seconds, may take hours and days, who knows, maybe it takes longer. Again, just think about it as we do as humans. And so the thing that's important that I'll just, for those of you who are business people, think of it this way. I always go back to the kind of the fundamentals of business strategy, and obviously one of the important people around strategic thinking, Michael Porter. And what did he say about competitive advantage, right? Every business wants competitive advantage. And what does he say? You kind of need a couple things. One, you need to be able to operate at a lower cost, or you can charge a premium pricing, or you can actually do both. So real competitive advantage is really that. And so when we think about agents, if we can leverage agents to automate workflows, kind of reduce the cost, the productivity in the organization, obviously that has the potential to create competitive advantage, although every one of your competitors is probably doing the same. The other lever we have is increasing kind of the premium of the offering. And as you think about integrating AI experiences into your product and services, that may actually increase kind of the value or the willingness to pay of your customers. And then of course you can do both. So I think agents are going to be something really critical as a critical capability in the organization as it relates to a competitive strategy. And so let's actually go and look at how we can leverage Claude as kind of an agent surface. And I think this is what we're seeing, right? These tools, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude, are really becoming kind of the surface, either through voice, kind of images, text, where we're engaging with it. And so there's, again, for those of you who are not familiar with Claude, there's a couple different ways we can use it. One, in the middle, of course, Claude AI on the web. A couple weeks ago, they came out with their desktop version, both on Mac OS and Windows, and then there's the mobile version. So the one we're actually going to use as kind of this agent surface is going to be the Claude desktop, because that's the only one that works with that today. And what they did back on November 26th, they released something that kind of sounds technical, and it is. It's a technical kind of protocol called Model Context Protocol, MCP. But really what they did is they needed to create kind of a standard mechanism for other companies to basically plug in their applications into Claude. And so I love this analogy. This was taken from the Anthropic documentation. Think of MCP like the USB port for AI applications. And that's all we're doing here. They've created an open source framework that allows any company who is accessible on the internet or on an application on your desktop to essentially plug into Claude. So this is super powerful. And maybe when you saw this thing, you probably just like, hey, I don't know what this is. This is just from a bunch of techno weenies. But here's an example. They came out this was 2 weeks ago with this kind of reference implementation, which is what happens when new kind of protocols are created. And you can just see on the left there, these are kind of out of the box services that we can, again, plug in to the Claude desktop. Things like Brave Search, things like Google Drive, Google Maps, right? Some of you, Slack, all of you are probably familiar with that. And then third parties are obviously building on this and extending this so that their application is accessible through kind of these services. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of take you through, well, how does this actually work? And so as I mentioned, I'm going to take you through, after we kind of do the demo, what are some of the things you need to do to set up your Claude desktop to be able to do the kind of the demo that I'm showing you. Okay, so let's go, and I'm going to kind of close that. Let's actually look at Claude. So this is the Claude desktop. And again, you can download this off anthropic.com. And I have a very simple scenario here that I'm going to kind of walk you through. But before I do that, what I'm going to share, and you can see this little icon, this little tools icon with the number 26. What does that mean? Well, let's just kind of look at that. What that is I've enabled the Claude desktop to have access to, again, all of these different tools that I've configured the Claude desktop for. So if you're using Claude out of the box, you're not going to have this. So there's kind of 4 different tools that I've put in Claude's toolbox. One is Brave Search through their API. Again, you can get this for free. Just have to sign up for Brave Search API so you can get an API key that allows you to programmatically access it. So Brave is one. And then I've enabled the file system service that allows Claude to access files and folders on my desktop. Now, I have to configure that to say, hey, Claude, you've got access to these things. So it's not like a free-for-all. Of course, you need to put some controls in place. And then the other service that I enabled is Google Maps. So I have the capability for Claude to hit the Google Maps API programmatically from my prompt. And this is what I'm going to show you. And then the other one that I've enabled, since I use Slack, is I've configured Slack. So the ability for Claude to read channels, to post to channels, again, just like what we would do as humans. And so every one of these different, that's kind of why it adds to up to 26, every one of these kind of capabilities that the MCP server has been enabled for, that's kind of how we get up to 26. And then there's another icon, which is kind of the experimental features that you can configure for. But again, that's not the purpose of this specific demo, although I wanted to kind of show you what that was all about. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at a very simple, how we can use Claude to execute a series of tasks. So in this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, I'd really love to know what the top 5 news stories. Again, you can pick a specific day, month, whatever you want. Remember, Claude, all these LLMs are trained, the base models are trained up to a certain point. So Claude doesn't know what happened after a certain date. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, go search the web. Now we've enabled with a tool, and it knows how to do that. So I'm going to say, hey, go search the web for the top 5 news stories in AI on December 12th, a couple days ago. Go ahead and summarize each story in a blog post, no more than 500 characters. Maybe I want to put that on my Substack. Save each story in Markdown, so that's a file format, to my file system, right? And then the other thing I want you to do, Claude, is post each story, the headline, to a Slack channel, okay? That's what I'm going to do. So let's actually walk through to see what it's going to do. Again, this is my prompt. It's got a set of tools, and let's actually see what's going to go here. So it's going to start to execute. It's going to, again, think about that. Let me help you. Now, the thing it does here, it's going to ask me, do you want to go ahead and enable them, right? So, right, there's some security controls, and I'm going to say yes. Go ahead and actually search the kind of the web for these stories. It's going to do the same thing. So here's what it's doing. It's saying, let me go perform that search. It's doing a query, and now it says, hey, I'm going to go write these kind of blog posts. And here's what it's going to do. It's going to write each of these files in Markdown to my file system. I'm going to say, hey, yeah, go ahead and do that. So you'll notice there's a file there, there's a headline, and it's going to go to do that. And you'll notice too here, maybe you didn't notice, but it noticed that there wasn't a folder there. So it's going to actually create on my desktop a folder. It's actually going to add those files to the folder, and we're gonna actually kind of look at really what's going on here, which is what we have on the right here. I'll just kind of put it. So you'll notice on the right here, we've got some files that are being created, AI_news_1 Markdown. So those files have been created on my desktop. Now I've given Claude access to the documents folder on my desktop, and I'm going to show you how to configure that. And then the final thing, I'm going to enable Claude to actually go and create some posts. So here's the other thing that's going on here. Here it is right now on my Claude. It's gone ahead and it's created top AI news again to a channel. I've given access to a channel. Hopefully you can see that. Today, these are the top 5 news stories on December 12th. Those are the names of those headlines. And again, up here on my desktop, that's where I've given Claude access to that folder. And so it's essentially completed this task that I've added. It's come back and it says, hey, I've posted this, I've completed these tasks, so I know I've got kind of closure. And then it asks me some questions. Hey, do you want any kind of changes on these files, any modifications? So hopefully this just gives you a really kind of open up your imagination around how we can use Claude with some tools to automate some workflows. And so one of the things I suggest to people, think about what you do manually to actually do the task and do the workflow, and then just pause and say, can an AI tool such as Claude, ChatGPT actually help me accomplish this whole workflow? Maybe it's a part of the workflow. Again, this was kind of 4 lines I gave it around this thing that I wanted to do. It reasoned, it broke it down, it looked at the tools that it had, it executed those actions, and then it actually came back and ensured that those files were generated and that there was kind of closure at the end, right? So kind of memory and getting to the outcome. So I don't know about you, but I think that's pretty cool. Just from a couple lines, probably you do some of that manually. And so let me just kind of take you through what you need to do to configure Claude. One is there's documentation that is on a GitHub site here. But what I can do is in the video, in the comments, I'll leave this link to GDoc that I've configured for you because it wasn't exactly obvious. And for some of you who are not very technical, you would probably struggle a little bit. So let me kind of just talk about it from a very, very high level. One, you're going to need to obviously create an account on Claude. You can do free, you can do paid, and then you're going to install the Claude desktop application, which is going to either be kind of reside obviously on in Mac OS or Windows. And then there's an application you need to install called Node.js. And again, I've got some instructions around how you're going to do that. That's going to enable your machine to do that. Again, I've got instructions for both Mac OS and Windows. And then the other thing you're going to do, the last thing you're going to do is actually configure it on a text file. you're going to actually configure the configuration file that Claude is going to read to look at the tools that you've enabled it for. And so let me just show you what that looks like. And it may be like, oh, James, like, hey, that looks really, really technical, but it's actually pretty easy once I actually show you really what it looks like. And so this is a JSON configuration. Again, all we're going to do, we're going to kind of copy this and we're going to paste it into an Excel file. So if you are familiar with Word in terms of cutting and pasting, right, don't worry, you'll be able to do it. And so in this instructions, I kind of show you where that particular file is. It's also available on Claude documentation. And really what you're going to do, just to kind of look, like if we were going to leverage the file system one, all we would do is we would go to this page that has listed all these servers, and then we would go down to, right, they've got a bunch of documentation, but really what we're going to do, we're literally going to just click on this button here that says copied, and we're going to paste this into a configuration file. Now we're going to have multiple servers, just like I do. I have like kind of I have four different servers, and so you're going to kind of paste this kind of 4 times. What you're not going to do is your the MCP servers right here. That's only going to show once, and everything else is going to be kind of nested in your JSON file. So again, I'll give you access to this, and you can actually kind of go through it line by line. It's fairly easy. I found that the instructions on the documentation site weren't very friendly for people who are not very technical. And my goal here is to enable this and ensure for those of you who are not very technical to be able to leverage the power of Claude as an agent to automate these tasks. But probably more importantly, yes, do that, become more productive. But I want to kind of expand your kind of creativity as a business leader and thinking about how can I, now that I understand what's possible, that I've maybe just scratched the first surface, how could I leverage some of this to automate entire workflows or parts of workflows within kind of our business. And so I hope this kind of demo helped you. Again, I'm going to put the links in the chat. It'll be accessible, or excuse me, on my blog post around that instructions. And I hope that this kind of overview of what you can do with Claude as kind of an agent experience help you. And if you've got any questions, I also do have a Discord server. You're more than welcome to kind of join that as well, so that I can serve you as well. Again, I'll put that link in the notes as well. So thanks a lot, and looking forward to your feedback and your comments.